Everything is energy. Our ability to work with energy or to rearrange energy or to manage energy will ultimately determine our satisfaction and our fulfillment in life. We're not able to live freely. We're not able to heal. And it's all because we're not using the energy in our lives the way that it's supposed to be. Whatever it is that someone is interested in, those things are meant to be happening in our lives, and they don't happen in our lives when we interrupt the energy flow the way that it's trying to express here on the planet. We are much more powerful as human beings than we ever thought we were. We're even more powerful when we realize that we are an energy being that is being human. That frees us up to use our five senses in new ways and to digest and filter and cleanse and heal and replenish and rejuvenate and become the creative entity that we were designed to be on this planet.
We don't really need to fix ourselves. Like, we're not broken. Everything we need to feel better about ourselves is already within us. That is something that we can access if we look within.
Hello and welcome. I'm Celine Chenoy, and this is the Dreamcatcher Podcast, a space for thoughtful, unhurried conversations about how we live and what truly matters. I'm really glad you're here.
We spend so much of our lives trying to grow and improve. Yet, a quieter question often remains. How do we create lasting change that stands the test of time? Not just understanding ourselves, but living from that understanding in a more grounded way. Today's guest, Dr. Sue Morter, brings a perspective that blends science, spirituality, and the intelligence of the body. Her work suggests that transformation isn't about fixing ourselves, but about learning to work with our energy and awareness at a deeper level. Dr. Sue is an internationally recognized speaker and founder of the Morter Institute of Bioenergetics. A pioneer in bioenergetic medicine, she co-developed the bioenergetic synchronization technique and created the Energy Codes framework, teaching self-healing and human potential to audiences around the world. In this conversation, we explored the ideas behind her book, The Anatomy of Awakening, including embodiment and how to move from insight into lived experience. If you've ever felt like you're doing the inner work, but not seeing it translate into real change, this is an episode you will appreciate. Dr. Sue, it's so great to have you on the show today. How are you doing?
Wonderful. It is fabulous to be here. I love to see where we get to go with these conversations and truly intend to help some people out. So I look forward.
So I've been on a personal quest to understand more about how we function across different dimensions of being a human. And as I read The Anatomy of Awakening, I could see that your work really offers a unique and practical lens into that inquiry. So I really enjoyed that. And I think many of our listeners will be able to relate to everything that you've shared, because many of them are doing the inner work, and they still sense that gap between understanding something fully and truly living and embodying it. So I'm really looking forward to exploring what it means to move from awareness to embodiment with you today.
Absolutely. You know, I know that is key for transformation to truly happen in someone's life. Just learning about a theory or understanding new science and research, the philosophy of something, all of these aspects of knowledge are at one layer of existence. And when we can embody it, when we can actually enliven our lives based upon those principles, then our lives begin to change. I mean, it's one thing to have a new idea, but it's another thing to be able to live into that idea and actually allow it to manifest here in the physical realm. So I've certainly had much experience along those lines. And so
definitely seems like the case. And it really comes through in the book. But before we dive into all those wonderful ideas in your book, Dr. Sue, I'd love to begin with you and your journey that brought you where you are today. You've spent over 4 decades exploring the intersection of science, spirituality, and human potential. Looking back, what first drew you to this path, and how did those early experiences shape the way you understand healing and consciousness today?
Mm. Well, I came upon it pretty honestly. My father was a pioneer in energy medicine, working with energy to heal the body back in the 1970s and the 80s. And so I was, growing up under this conversation, and we would sit around the dinner table and talk about the new research in the world of quantum science, literally. And when I was in junior high school and off to college. And so it became a way of knowing that life unfolds, and an understanding that our thoughts and our perceptions of life and our management of our emotional states determines our ability to self-heal or not. It determines our ability to truly become masterful in life. And so it adds a layer of consciousness to our lives when we recognize that I don't have to react to what happens in my life just because someone does something or circumstances go a certain way. It doesn't have to have the impact on me that I would allow it to. And so I was raised in this understanding that it's our internal environment, our thoughts, our beliefs, our perceptions, our way of feeling and processing our own energies that ultimately will determine the reality that we walk around in. And so I grew up with these principles, and even knowing the principles, and this speaks to what we were just talking about, even knowing the principles doesn't mean that you know how to do that. What happens is we have to learn how the real-time moment arrives, and to recognize that this is the moment where I'm supposed to implement this thing that we were learning or talking about or studying in the case of our world today. And so I began having headaches, and while I was running a clinic and helping other people with their migraine headaches, I couldn't help myself with it, and I didn't even really realize that it was really debilitating. I was starting to miss a day or two of work a week, and recognizing that as I'm laying in my bed with a migraine headache with the curtains drawn and the lights off and just totally miserable, that I needed to truly embody something that I was not. And so I started listening to, when I could go to work, I started listening to what I was saying to my patients that had migraine headaches, that were saying, oh my gosh, I've had these things for 20 years and I'm not having them anymore, and it's really working for me. So I started listening to on a deeper, more intimate level with what was transpiring. And I became interested in meditating because I knew that meditation was a real and valid research-based, recognized way of managing headaches and health issues. And so I went to learn to meditate, and I instantly started having transcendental, multidimensional experiences that rocked my world, changed my reality. I was in other realms like that. And I had no context for this. It didn't show up in my studies. It wasn't part of the research that had me, as a doctor, opening a clinic and working with people in terms of healing. It wasn't my world. And so I began to research what was happening there. And it was life-changing what was happening there. Whether I ever understood it or not didn't even really matter to me. Whether science could explain it or not didn't really matter to me, because it was changing my perception of self and who we are and what we're doing here. And I began to be able to see and sense and perceive energies in ways that I had never before. And so my life it took a big turn in that moment, and I became completely devoted to understanding it, what was happening, embodying what I was witnessing in these meditative states, learning how to live into them. In fact, recognizing these realms, these other worlds, was one thing. I mean, it certainly changed my mind about who we are and what's going on here, but it didn't really help me heal my physical body, my life, my relationships, my circumstances, until I learned how to embody what what I was experiencing. I learned how to live into that and allow it to be true here in this life, in this world. And so not only did my migraines go away, I healed the scoliosis in my spine that I was born with. And I began noticing that I was healing all sorts of other things, injuries and issues that were longstanding, all alike. They were all starting to resolve, and my physical, my mental and emotional life was changing dramatically because of an awakening, if you will, to higher states of consciousness and versions of who we are. So I've spent the last 26 years helping other people do the same.
That's quite a journey you've had. Thank you for sharing. I'm curious, since you are someone who comes from a clinical background, was there a part of you that was skeptical when you were getting all these revelations or when you were experiencing these visions that you were having while you were meditating, or were you open to it?
Well, as I said, it didn't fit into my vernacular. It didn't fit into the scientific research and the explanations, that we knew about the body and the nervous system. And even though I was studying an electromagnetic energy system that builds the nervous system in the developing embryo, and even though I knew that it was energy that ultimately determined how the nervous system is regulated or dysregulated, and whether or not a person moves into healing or stays in a state of fight or flight, that's all energy based. It's a flow of energy through our system. So I knew that, but what I didn't know, I knew about the theory, I knew about the principle, but I had no idea what it would be like to experience life from that energetic state. To be an energy being is different than to know that energy is moving through our system and builds the body, and is a master system that builds our immune system and our endocrine system, our hormonal system, all of that. The digestive, the respiratory, the circulatory systems are all actually forms of energy flowing and circulating to develop, to sustain this physical body that we're living in. So what it came down to was the recognition that everything is energy. And science shows us this. Everything is energy. And our ability to work with energy or to rearrange energy or to manage energy will ultimately determine our satisfaction and our fulfillment in life. But what I didn't know was that you could have an experience of being that energy, being that energetic being, that presence here on this earth. Had no idea that entire world would reveal in a real and experiential manner. And so, I knew about people taking psychotropics and, going on shamanic journeys and, taking
ayahuasca
things
ceremonies.
that would allow them to, reduce these governors inside the brain and have access to higher perceptions. But I didn't know that we could just have that happen, on our own in a natural setting. And so it was quite shocking, for sure, to say the least.
I'm sure it was. And that's why embodiment is such a huge piece of what you talk about, what you write about in the book. And, just like you, many people have these moments of clarity, insight, but they don't always know how to integrate them. So how can someone begin to move from understanding these ideas to actually living them in a steady, grounded way? Because you were able to do that. So for someone who's still in that place where you were, like, how can they begin to move towards actually feeling it in their bodies and
Totally. Great question. Yeah. Thank you. So what I can do is I can show you an image of that is like the best way to capture what I was experiencing in this exalted state of consciousness, that when I lit up in a higher state. So if someone would kind of think of, like, we talk about my higher self or my soulful self, or that something nurtures the soul or something's good for the soul, or, we talk about these kinds of things all the time, but I lit up as that. Instead of being the personality that talks about having a soul or being a personality that talks about its higher self, I became that higher self. So I have an image that is the closest thing that I've been able to put together to demonstrate where I was, what the realm was. But before I put it up, I'd like to just describe, what was happening in that state. I was in an exalted state of consciousness. I could see in every direction at the same time. I could see above and below, in front and behind, to the sides. I could see that I had free will because I could choose to look in front of me or behind me or below me. And yet I was me, but I wasn't in a physical body. I was, in fact, actually more like a ray of light, if I could describe that. And I could see the earth beneath me about the size of a marble. And I was embedded into it up to what would have been my knees. But I didn't have knees because I was a ray of light embedded into the planet, which sounds exactly kind of crazy. And yet it was exactly what was happening. So I have this image that I'd like to put up on this wall here.
Yes.
And
And
I'm
for
just
those
gonna,
listening, I'll add the link to the show notes.
yeah, we're going to put a link in here and show you some of these images. And this one is this image. I'll describe it while I'm kind of talking about it. What happened was, this is who we think we are. We think we are this human being that is walking around on the surface of the planet. And actually, there is an energy flow, a stream of energy that pours into the physical body. This is measurable, that pours into the physical body, and it hits the earth and it rises up and cycles around and around and around the outside of the body. And I'm going to show you a close-up of that to be able to resonate and relate to what's happening here. Because this would be the higher self. This is actually who we truly are. And this is actually a project that we are in, being human. So we think we are a human being, but we're actually an energy being that is being human, right? So spirituality had spoken about this for millennia. And what quantum science is showing us, and the new study of biology is showing us, that this is actually quite measurable, that it isn't some fantasy land and some ideal that we talk about being a spiritual being having a physical experience. We are an energy being having an energetic experience in the physical dimension. And so here's what we know about energy. All physical matter is compressed energy. All physical matter. So the chair you're sitting in is compressed energy. And so if you decompress that, it just becomes part of the energy field. Our physical bodies are compressed energy. Our physical bodies are compressed more than our thoughts and our emotions. And so there are degrees of compression that determine if we are operating in all the way into our physical existence or not. So when we begin to recognize the truth of this whole system that we are living in, we can become more masterful at managing the energies of our lives, which equates to our emotional states, our disposition, our level of intelligence that we're able to integrate and operate from, our ability to self-heal and to recognize that we are holding on to old beliefs that are limiting our life experience and causing us to not be able to heal and replenish. And so let me just talk about how that's true. So this energy pours into the physical body and hits the earth, and it rises up through this body. Even before the body exists, this energy is operating in this way. It runs out the top of the head, cycles around the outside of the body, comes back in at the base of the spine, rises up the central core of the body again, and pours out the top of the head, and it offers and cycles around again and comes in at the base of the spine, and it continues to recycle and recycle. And in that process, we're able to heal. We're able to self-heal. And here's how most people are operating. This energy pours straight into the earth, hits the earth, reflects back up, rises up, and we shut down in certain ways. Somewhere along the way, we got hurt. And so we were emotionally hurt. So we shut down. We were maybe loving someone who didn't love us back, or ended up, deserting us or abandoning us in some way. So we shut down in that way. Or we try something new and it doesn't work out. So we shut down in our area of creativity and innovation and the aspects of us that are willing to take a risk and to lean into our dreams and our desires and to, assume that it's meant to be and that the universe is on my side. We start shutting down along the way based on our experiences. And what happens in those moments of shutdown is that we prematurely draw a conclusion that that's never going to be safe. It didn't work out that well that time, so I'm not going to do it again. I'm going to just guard myself and protect. So I'm going to circumvent all those issues that could potentially hurt me or disappoint me or be disillusioning for me again at some point in the future. So here's what happens. That rising energy has to go around all those areas that we have shut down. And it creates a wobble in the energy flow in our system. And that creates a distortion in the energy field. So now this individual is standing, looking out through a distorted energy pattern, and they see a distorted reality. They see a world that doesn't care, and that it's not fair, and that it's not safe, and it's never going to work for me. And I have to shut down and guard and protect and be afraid and frightened. And that dysregulates the nervous system. And then the nervous system gets us stuck in a fight or flight pattern. And the next thing you know, we're not healing things. We injure ourselves and it doesn't heal. And 10 years later, we're still talking about that automobile accident that I've never really been the same since that happened, or that stressful time in my life and my allergies and my asthma or my digestive problems showed up during a time of a divorce or losing a job or what have you. Right. So here's the thing. We're busy now trying to learn how to self-heal and to regulate our nervous systems and to get, stationed and stable and feel okay and all the changes that are happening in the world. But it's about the energy flow. If the energy is still flowing in this distorted, wobbling way, our nervous systems don't stand a chance of regulating, because the energy system determines what the nervous system thinks it has to do, thinks it has to deal with. If this energy is running in a distorted fashion, it signals the nervous system that something's not right. So the nervous system then is constantly sorting for what's wrong, what's not working right, what's not going well. Am I safe? Am I not? So it's hypervigilant in terms of guarding ourselves and protecting ourselves. And, in the midst of that, we're not able to love freely. We're not able to live freely. We're not able to heal easily. And it's all because we're not using the energy in our lives the way that it's supposed to be. So then people want to know, well, okay, how do I do that? How do I use the energy more accurately? How do I get better at flowing the energy through my body? And
recognize the degree to which their energy is distorted? Is there a way to know?
Yeah. Every time we get triggered, it's evidence that we have some of this going on. When somebody says something to us and it triggers us, or we anticipate maybe this thing is going to happen and we get triggered, and it seems like our reaction is a little bit bigger than what's actually happening in this moment. And it reminds us of something that we experienced early, like my mother was that way, or my father was that way, or I got dissed once before in a relationship and you're acting just like they did. And so, I'm on hyper alert.
Yeah.
And so if people are anxious, if they're not sleeping well, if they're not able to digest food easily, if they're not joyous, if they're not adventurous and creative and courageous, then we are operating inside of a system that is doing this. If we're not healing from an injury, or we have this chronic digestive issue or headaches or the things that we've been describing, it's all because this system
they're all
isn't operating.
Symptoms of something going on.
Yes, those are the signs and the symptoms that this is happening. And the great news is we can do something about this. We're built to do something about this. In fact, the reason that we come into this life is to get good at doing this, because we want to have an experience of ourselves as a creative presence on the planet. We want to feel that we're contributing and making a difference, not only to the world, but to our own evolution, that we're waking up and that we're evolving and that we're feeling our strength grow and develop and anchor in our lives. And then our lives and our relationships and our abundance and our ability to be fluid in financial circumstances or opportunities or, whatever it is that someone is interested in. Those things are meant to be happening in our lives, and they don't happen in our lives when we interrupt the energy flow the way that it's trying to express here, on the planet. So it's pretty amazing.
Hello, everyone. I'm excited to announce the upcoming launch of my new book titled The Nomadic Soul, a seeker's guide to finding a sense of self and belonging in the modern world, which highlights a profound yet often unexplored part of your identity that holds the key to everything from answering your biggest questions to finding deeper meaning and joy in everyday life. Visit thenomadicsoulbook.com to learn more, download a free chapter,
or to buy a coffee. And I think your framework is so empowering because it puts us in the driver's seat. I was just thinking about doctors or people in the medical field. I don't think they know about this, right? Are they even open to viewing the system, the human energetic system, or are they do they prefer to stay on the physical level and just adhering to what they learn in medical school? Like, what is your experience?
Yeah, it's a great question.
Yeah.
And as I was going through school, my father happened to be in the research. And so I was bringing ideas forward that weren't in the common conversation. But if you take everything that we were being taught in school, if you take it down to its foundational level, the energy is behind it all.
Yeah.
Even medications are energies. Everything is energy.
Right.
Surgery is rearranging energetically what's happening in this body. But if we learn to rearrange how the energy is flowing through the body, we can circumvent the need for the medication or the surgery, what have you. So the thing is, our humanity has been focused on our physical, tangible world for so long that we've forgotten about the invisible world. The indigenous peoples on the planet, they knew about the invisible world. They worked with the visible world. They worked with what they called the spirits of the mountain or the spirits of the rivers or spirits of the land, etc. And they also knew that there was a direct communion with source and with self, that there wasn't a separation that left us feeling disempowered and disconnected and isolated and alone. And so I feel that our humanity is going to have to revisit our foundation if we're ever going to truly bring these truths forward again, even amongst modern science. And the beauty is, quantum science is forcing us to do that. Because quantum science, which is the newest science on our frontier, is showing us that we are the director of our lives, that we are the creator of our lives, of our life experience. In fact, everything that I've been sharing with you so far is based in bioenergetics and quantum science. Quantum science teaches us that if we're looking for a problem, we find a problem. And if we're looking for an opportunity, we find an opportunity. And if we're looking for creating something, if we're looking to come into this life and change and rearrange our relationships, our relationship with life, our relationship with money, our relationship with each other, our relationship with time, our relationship with healing, our relationship with God or source, or however we want to look at that, our relationship with the universe, that quantum science is showing us that whatever we're curious about is what builds in our lives. We attract it and pull it forward, and we literally pull these little tiny packets of energy of awareness called photons. We pull them into certain patterns in our life based upon what matters to us, based upon what we pay attention to, what we draw from a situation. It's sort of like, you go to a movie with some friends and different friends get different things out of the movie, or you read a book and some other people read the book and you're like, oh, that's not what I got. I got this. And it's all about what we're looking for. That's what we see. That's what we draw forth from the infinite possibility. And so what quantum science is showing us is that when we are looking for, when our come from is one of possibility, possibilities unfold in our lives. When our come from is prove it, show me, I don't believe it, I won't believe it until I can see it. When that's our general disposition, we slow down the flow of energy through our lives because our intellect has to identify and put our finger on every single thing so that we can understand it, because we've built a mind that insists on understanding everything that we see and do and explore and experience. And then when that gives us a limited life experience, because it does, we then pray for a miracle, which is something that happens beyond logic. Right? People don't pray for logic. They pray for miracles, which are things that happen beyond the logic, beyond the anticipated, beyond what the linear sciences would lead us to believe is possible. But quantum science is showing us actually anything is possible. If you will embody these energies the way that we're talking about and anchor and ground them, then you make grounded and integrated decisions. You have a calm and steady come from because you feel whole and stable. So you're sitting in a system that's being used the way it was designed to be used.
Yeah.
And you feel a stability and a clarity that allows your mind to become free, to become imaginative and innovative and creative. So we can come up with solutions for things that we can't come up with when we're seated in a system that is wobbling and distorted. What that does to our system is lock down our creativity, because we move into survival mode under those circumstances. And we then have to depend on, show me so I can see what's safe, so I can see what to do. But we're not really living as the creative presence that we're designed to be. Now we're living as a surviving presence, and we're competing and comparing and trying to make sure that there's a way for us and we get ours while the getting's good, and we don't share, and we're not really concerned about the planet and about each other, et cetera. And it turns into just a really horrible life experience that humanity is generating for itself, because it doesn't know how to live inside the system that we built in a fashion that works. So it doesn't work. And so we get frustrated and afraid and intimidated, and and then our survival instincts, come forward. So there are ways to move into this.
And I've seen so many people living life that way, where they need to see proof of things happening in their life. And I think they're just kind of ensnared by their fears, their limiting beliefs, or just hurtful experiences that they've had in the past that they cannot see past that. And it makes it hard for them to have that expansive perspective that you speak about. And they need to be also in the right environment. And I speak from experience because, I grew up in a family like that. So it was only when I started seeking the right books and the right mentors and coaches and being in the right environments that I was able to climb out of that limited, fearful perspective that you speak about.
Yeah.
So.
Yes. And so you're doing that on a mind-based level.
Sure.
I'm changing my mind. I'm growing my mind. I'm expanding my mind. And it's beautiful. Some people have a hard time doing that. And so because they're holding on to those beliefs, they're holding on to those things that have kept them safe or at least gotten them this far.
Absolutely.
So it's really hard to pry your fingers away and, just drop, like, where do I go? Do I float off into the oblivion? Do I fall away in some way? How do I make sure I'm going to be stable and clear and present and strong and capable of making decisions, good decisions? And how am I going to know who I am if I don't hold on to who I thought I was?
Yeah.
And so that what I'm doing is giving people an opportunity to feel themselves in their core instead of having to hold on to their beliefs. Some people can investigate their beliefs and have an amazing time rearranging them, changing them, updating them. And some people have a hard time actually embodying that, having a hard time actually having that unfold in their lives. And so I have a way of getting people to come into the central core, the driver's seat of this system that I'm describing. Instead of living in our heads, picture it like you're living in your whole body. And there are aspects of your whole body that operate as a filtering mechanism that allow you to step down these infinite possibilities into possibilities that work for you individually, that are absolutely going to meet your specific needs, not just throw you out into that world of infinite possibilities and try to make the best of it, So what I do is, if you just look at this central core part of this channel, there is a way of activating ourselves and anchoring ourselves in that channel so that we don't pour back out into this distortion again, because this distortion is created by people's limiting beliefs. That's what I'm talking about. We create that distortion by concluding something that isn't true, but it might as well be true because we decided that it's not safe to love, or I'm not smart enough, or it's too late, or I'm not good enough, or I'm undeserving. Those beliefs create these wobbles that are this distortion that we're looking at. So to change this, we have to anchor ourselves in this deep core and start to learn to stabilize that energy field so that it returns toward that balanced, harmonious version of who we are.
And I
when
just
that
want to say in the
yeah,
book, Dr. Sue offers a lot of exercises and practical things you can do to get to that place.
yeah, that's the point,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
We have to know how. It's not good enough to just know. We have to know how. I mean, it's really important that we know that our nervous system is holding on to beliefs because we don't know who we are without those beliefs. And
Mm-hmm.
it's really important to know that we could learn who we are underneath those beliefs. And by doing so, we start to stabilize ourselves in ways that we've never stabilized ourselves before. If I'm anchored in this deep core channel, I don't have to depend on all these premature conclusions that have become the beliefs that run my life. I don't have to hold on to those beliefs. They will actually literally dissolve away when I don't keep reaffirming them and recreating them by utilizing them every day. Like we know the statement of use it or lose it. Well, we use our beliefs all the time, and so we don't lose them. But if we stop using them to determine who we are, and we can have a felt sense of who we are in our bodies and in our minds and in our breath and in our hearts, if we can feel, I know who I am, and it doesn't have anything to do with how you treat me or how things go or the opportunities that cross my path. I am a sovereign individual, presence here on this planet that is chocked full of gifts that I'm here to bring. I'm not here to get you to love me so that I can be loved. I'm actually made of love, which is another conversation. But as this energy compresses toward physical form from the quantum field, the very first compression generates a vibrational frequency that is love. And that we continue to compress into these physical bodies. So we're actually based in love. We're made. And I don't mean love like I love you, do you love me? I mean the love that is the life force itself.
Yeah.
The love that it's love that makes the sun rise and the flowers, rise and bloom and flourish, and all of the light dance on the surface of the water and the moonlight or what have you. That's all this realm where life works. That's the realm of love that I'm speaking about. So we all have access.
And speaking of love, I think you have such a compassionate approach in saying that we don't really need to fix ourselves. Like, we're not broken. Everything we need to heal and feel better about ourselves is already within us. And that's exactly what you were illustrating right now, that that is something that we can access if we look within.
Yes, exactly. And so it's also very helpful for us to realize that we are made of the universe. Like the universe, think of it this way, the universe compresses into a series of compressions that end up bringing us all the way here. So that little toric field thing, it's right here. And it's pouring, it's actually creating us through a series of compressions. We become that enfoldment of energy, and then we pour forward into this, this sort of rainbow movie that we're projecting. So here's this unified field that we are. The quantum field compresses.
What is that? I was like, is it a black hole? What is that?
It's the energy starting to compress. And it creates this continuum, this through line from the unified field all the way to the physical realm, and then pours through us, and we project a movie that we're actually walking into all of our lives. This is what quantum science shows us, that we're all collectively projecting a movie that we're all participating in. And so we can learn how to manage that differently by opening this up, by opening up these patterns that have been shut down. We open up that doorway and allow ourselves to pour through into this life that we're living. And you bet, we're not broken. We're just not using our faculties the way that they were designed to be used. And so we feel like something's missing. We feel like something's wrong. We feel like there's something, inadequate or inept about me, that I can't figure this out, or I can't heal this thing, or I just can't get life working the way I want it to. I can't get the job I want, or the partner that I want, or, heal these things that I want to heal. And it's not because there's something wrong with us. It's because nobody showed us how to use the equipment that we arrived in. And so we just try to use our heads. We just use the intellect alone because we don't know what else to do. But when we use the mind and the body and the breath together, we start to feel more anchored. We start to feel, and I started to show you these anchor points that we can activate inside our own system by squeezing certain muscles deep in the core of our body, and it starts to rush the energy to that center point where we feel more stable, sort of like the eye of the storm. Okay, it's sort of like the eye of the tornado, the center of the tornado.
That's what it looked like. Yeah.
It's not that windy back in the middle. It's just when you get out on that outer rim of the tornado, where houses get torn apart, right?
Yeah.
And you're all of a sudden you're living a very distorted and disruptive life. So we have to get back to the core, back to the center of that storm, and allow for things to stabilize. And then we start thinking smarter.
Sure. And you've created a wonderful pathway that you call the codes, which really gives all of this a sense of structure. I mean, for people who find this esoteric and a little bit out there, I think this could really ground everything that you've been teaching. You outlined 5 hidden codes that activate self-healing and higher consciousness. So, Dr. Shu, at a high level, what are these codes, and how do they help us access that part within us that you keep talking about, that centered part?
Yeah. So as I was starting to show you, there are anchor points in the body that we can utilize to stabilize these energies that we are made of, that we are comprised of. And the codes are some cosmic principles, some universal principles that govern cosmic law and natural law, things like gravity and things like motion and things like consciousness, et cetera. So what science is showing us is that our entire reality is based in consciousness, which is what I'm talking about this movie, that our entire reality is based in consciousness. And this is something that is new for people to begin to explore on a deeper level in mass. And as we do, we start to realize the power that we have in our lives. And so what I've done is taken these universal principles and allowed them to work together in a way that we can systematize our true power as an energy being, as a quantum being. And as we systematize understanding and living into and working with the practices that are in the book, we begin to sense and feel that we are changing things. We're not as triggered by these things. We do have a deeper understanding of who we are and what has always been, that we have lost along the way over the millennia. And so I put them together and I codified them in ways that are making tremendous and beautiful differences for people in their lives, where they're healing and becoming more fluid with life and able to be more free to explore their deeper dreams and their desires to manifest, that they feel safer proceeding into a life of the unknown instead of constantly depending on, I'll believe it when I can see it, because the truth is we're governed by an invisible reality. So the invisible world actually is the real world, and this manifest world is a reflection of it. And so I talk about it in the book in terms that are user-friendly and break down quantum science and deep spiritual, passages that have been in all the sacred texts over the millennia, and also in the mythologies of our world and into the deep philosophies. But I break it down so that it's like refreshing to read and to be present with, because it starts to tap into us in a way that allows us to recognize, I knew that was true. I knew that I had the power to do that. I have always wondered about these kinds of things that are now being explained in relativity with each other, so that we can engage in this life in a way that is empowered and masterful. And so the codes are teaching us how to awaken to a higher version of who we are. They're teaching us how to recognize that I'm not governed by my history. I'm not governed by my beliefs. I'm actually governed by a higher principle that could dissolve those beliefs readily if I would activate and enliven this higher vibrational version of who I am. So think of it this way. we depend on the nervous system and the brain, and we dissect it and we can pull it apart and we can see this part of the brain resonates with this. And when we feel this particular way, it lights up this part of the brain. And we know that's how we transcend the primitive brain and get up into the high executive brain centers that allow us to be creative genius without hesitating. And so all of that is where we've been focusing, because we can touch the nervous system, we can dissect it in a cadaver in the lab, we can see this does that, and we can feel and sense those things. And what we've not really studied was, how did that thing get built? What's really going on here? How did this thing become so perfect in its expression? How can it be so miraculous and amazing? What's going on? And with quantum science in the picture, we can know what's going on. We can see what's happening. And we can put the pieces together and recognize that we are much more powerful as human beings than we ever thought we were. We're even more powerful when we realize that we are an energy being that is being human at this time. And that frees us up to use our five senses in new ways, and to digest and filter and cleanse and heal and replenish and rejuvenate and become the creative entity that we were designed to be on this planet, instead of just doing my best to regulate my nervous system, trying to get over my sinus issues or my allergies or my digestive problems, or the fact that I can't sleep at night or that I'm nervous all the time. People just don't recognize that all of those things are the byproduct. They're symptoms of something. Even what we call anxiety is a symptom of our power center trying to enliven our solar plexus, which is just right where the ribs splay apart. Yeah. When our personal identity is trying to come online and step into our true power, it vibrates in that area. But we've mistakenly predetermined that when I'm vibrating in this area, right where my ribs splay apart, it's because of anxiety. And so we try to shut it down. So here the system's trying to wake up, and we keep trying to shut it down because we're misinterpreting what we're feeling. So my desire with the new book and my original book are both to lead people into an understanding of, here's what's happening when you're waking up to new versions of yourself. Here's how it feels in your body. Here's how you can track that that's actually what's happening. Here's how you can identify that maybe this is happening with you too, and that you're wrestling with problems long after you really need to be, that you could move forward into your path in life, knowing that these signs and symptoms are actually trying to support you in doing so. And they're not trying to take you out of the game. They're actually trying to show you how you could become more of the truth of who you are if you just learn how to read the signs. So there are a plethora of these signs happening inside our body that we can feel. Every time you get a lump in your throat, tightness in your chest, a knot in your stomach, it's trying to tell you, you have some of this going on. You have some of these shutdowns that are going to lead to a trigger if you don't take care of them. And so the trigger is trying to show you, hey, you're not operating on all your cylinders. If you were, you wouldn't be bothered by this person saying this thing or this situation going in this way. It wouldn't threaten you whatsoever. You could see it, you could interact with it, you could exchange with it, but it isn't going to take you out of the game. It doesn't have anything to do with you. But when we're only running on a few of our cylinders, or we're not operating on the fullness of our system, we're intimidated by anything that's not going exactly like we thought it would, or thought it could, or thought it should. And so we're not free until we are. So we have to learn how to turn this system on so that it's operating in the way that it's designed to be operating, so that we aren't so reactive. Then we can become creative. Then we can heal. Then we can be innovative and lead our lives instead of just reacting to, what's coming next kind of thing. So.
And what a powerful way to live, really. And I so wish that information like this is more mainstream and people have more access to this. And, thanks to people like you, that's hopefully going to start becoming the norm. So thank you so much.
It is more and more. It is more and more.
Is?
More and more people.
It's
yes.
like it's your life mission.
Yeah, it is. It's totally why I'm here. It's what I'm doing for sure. And we are definitely seeing strides with lots of, there's so many people that are coming into my coursework and having results and changing things that they've been trying to work out with their family physician or whatever for years. and they're getting these results. People's disease conditions, diagnoses are changing. They're healing, things that were considered chronic degenerative illnesses, et cetera. And so it gets the rest of the profession, the medical profession, leaning in and listening and taking a look at things. And so more and more hospitals are even offering, courses in meditation and breath work and these kinds of things as part of their rehabilitation, and even part of their efforts to prepare people for surgeries and so forth. So the very thing that I'm teaching people to do that will allow them to avoid the surgery, other people are learning at the last minute, right before their surgery, to do some of it to help prepare them so that they have a better result in their surgery. And then they're utilizing these things to help in their rehabilitation from, coming off of addictions or coming off of surgical procedures and trying to heal. So we have ways of working with so many. And so I'm teaching people how to do this all the time. And that is helping people recognize, and that helps, it sort of has a ripple effect. And then pretty soon the medical profession is listening. There was a time when the medical profession, wouldn't have anything to do with nutrition, having anything to do with someone's health and well-being.
And that wasn't very long ago, right?
It wasn't that long ago.
Yeah.
And so, but when people were changing their diets and changing their blood pressure or changing their blood sugar and coming off of insulin and rearranging, blood pressure medications and coming off of those medications and going back to their doctors and saying, hey, how do you explain this? And so then the doctors had to listen. We had to listen and lean in a little bit. And so, the same thing is happening with meditation and breath work and really working with the bioenergetics of our system. It's a science. It's a provable, reproducible science. And we have the research to validate that. And so it's something that is wise for people to lean into and help us create a world that is appreciating the beautiful mastery that our system and the miracle that our system is, and to get to know a little bit about that instead of just writing the miraculous off as a realm that we have nothing to do with. Because quantum science is showing us that we can draw that reality right into our life experience in terms of healing, in terms of creating and awakening and changing our life as we know it. So it's upon us. It's our time.
Yeah. Yes, it is our time, and we're getting there. And, thank you for being one of the torchbearers for this knowledge. We really
it's so fulfilling. Yes. You're welcome. And I feel like, it's so exhilarating to explore these things.
I can tell you are so, you're 100%.
I'm just on fire, and I've been on fire like this for 25 years. It's not just today. I'm going to be this way tomorrow too, because I see what it does for people. I see people's lives change. They come back with tears in their eyes and just sharing so many beautiful things about, things that they're courageous enough to do, and that they're not even having to feel like they're being courageous. They're just turning on this thing. It's not like they have to muster up the gumption to go be brave. It's like, no, it's pouring through me and I can feel it. And that's what I want everyone to be able to recognize.
And you're just guiding them in that direction.
Right. I'm just showing them how to do it for themselves. And that's what it's all about.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much, Dr. Sue. I mean, this has been such a rich and meaningful conversation. I truly appreciate the clarity and the depth that you brought to the space, and the way that your work continues to, permeate everywhere. And it's clear that you do it with love, with intention, and compassion.
Oh, beautiful. Yes. May we all operate in this way, right?
Absolutely.
This is how we create the world we're supposed to be living in.
And I want to quickly let our listeners know, I highly recommend The Anatomy of Awakening. I mean, it offers such a meaningful framework for understanding yourself more deeply and for engaging with healing in a more embodied way. And you can also learn about Dr. Sue's her programs, her resources on her website, drsuemorter.com. The link will be in the show notes.